Good morning once again, and welcome to the Ministry of Education's 2024 Annual Press Conference. I'd like to recognize the Honourable Minister of Education, Priya Manickchand, our CEO, Saddam Hussein, our DCOs, our ACOs, other senior officers within the Ministry of Education, and of course, members of the media. Thank you all for joining us here today. We will start today's program with Minister Manickchand reading our annual report from 2024, followed by our question and answer segment.
I'm very happy to be here. Happy New Year to all of you and to all of us watching. When they say I'll read something, it makes me nervous because I don't see that well these days, age. I am also joined by the Chief Education Officer, Deputy Chiefs, Assistant Chief Education Officers, and other senior officers of the ministry who will be happy to interact with you when that time comes. The Ministry of Education has had an extremely remarkably successful year that we're very proud of. We are very proud that we were able to, and feel great pride in the fact that we were able to deliver as much as we have. Not in a boastful way, in a way that speaks to gratification and humbleness. We have had to overcome challenges that you and the nation doesn't remember exist, and that's how it should be. We inherited and came into office when we had one of the worst challenges any education sector has ever seen historically, and that is the COVID-19 lockdown, where schools were closed, and for the first time we were forced to do something that we'd never done before: educate the nation's children without being face to face. And our community, our education community, teachers, parents, students, pupils, the ministries of education's officers, regional education officers, and the government structure supported that period in a way that saw us defying the predictions that were made by the international financial institutions and UNICEF and UNESCO and so on. What were those predictions? One, that we would see severe learning loss, and two, that we would see remarkable numbers of early school leavers. Fancy thing to say, a lot of dropouts. And we have defied that by making sure we implemented several changes that were going to minimize. We didn't expect it to reverse, but minimize that happening. And so we've overcome that challenge as a people, as a nation, and we have proceeded to embrace opportunities, all with a view to making sure our current learners, those in nursery, primary, and secondary, and those who will leave, can benefit from the thriving Guyana that we see being built out before us, that can compete in the world wherever they go in various fields, that can do whatever it is that their mind and their parents and their desires lead them to do, that their God has called them to do. And so we're very happy this morning to report to you on main things. If I were to stand here and tell you everything we've done over the last year, we ain't going home. So we're not doing that. We're doing some very main item things that touched large numbers of persons across the board. And then we would be open for questions that you have, and we'd be happy. I suspect those questions, if you have any, would take us into maybe areas that we did not touch, and we would be very happy to be able to do that. Our focus areas would be, just give me a moment to grab that, and that would be what we're what we're scrolling on the screen for too. Our focus areas would be infrastructure, teacher training, and before I begin, I want to say that everything we do is premised on two documents. One, our education sector plan, and two, the manifesto promises made by the People's Progressive Party Civic when they were campaigning and asking people to vote for them. Why? Because that's where we laid out what we want to do, and that's where the people of Guyana, that's what the people of Guyana gave us the mandate to do. So we have a duty to deliver on those. So we are looking at access, we're looking at quality, we're looking at making sure resources are given to make sure we achieve the access and quality we're talking about, and we're making sure we look at trying to produce children who are ready for the job market. From 2020 to 2024, we've spent $31 billion, $529 $228 and $360. I think that's not the updated one that they have there. In new construction, we have spent $13 billion, 13 plus. In reconstruction, $7 billion. In major extensions, $8 billion. And in major rehabilitation, $2 billion. And that spreads across Guyana. It's broken down as follows. In Region 1, we've spent $817 million. In Region 2, $3.6 billion. In Region 3, $3.5 billion. In Region 4, $8.3 billion. In Region 5, $897 million. In Region 6, $751 million. In Region 7, $2.4 billion. In Region 8, $1.8 billion. In Region 9, $2.8 billion. In Region 10, $825 million. And in Georgetown, $5.3 billion. You would notice that I'm not doing the cents and millions out of deep fear that I call that figure incorrectly, as I am known to do. This includes the building of new nursery, primary, and secondary schools across the country. In fact, on the issue of secondary schools, one of our promises was that we would deliver universal secondary education. And you have seen for yourself, because you live here where I live, the major expansion happening in secondary education across the country. So these are the secondary schools that we are currently building. In Region 1, we are building or rebuilding 5 secondary schools. Could I have my phone? Those would be the Northwest Secondary, Hosororo Secondary, Quebana Secondary, Waramuri Secondary, and Matthews Ridge Secondary. Almost all of those have also dormitories and teachers' quarters being built with them. In Region 2, we rebuilt the Abrams Zool Secondary, and we will be rebuilding the Cotton Field Secondary at the same location without using the field, because I know there were some sensitivities around that. In Region 3, we built already the De Willem Secondary. We finished the Westminster Secondary. We are building Neems Secondary, Tushin Secondary. Those are all large schools. In Region 4, we finished Good Hope Secondary, the Aracabra Secondary, and we're currently building Prospect Secondary and Caneville Secondary. In Region 5, there's no need for a secondary school, but we're looking at transportation to get our children to secondary schools. In Region 6, we're building the Oriala Siparuta Secondary in Oriala. In Region 7, we're building Philippi Secondary, Jawala Secondary, Isano Secondary, and Carao Secondary. In Region 8, we're building Kopinang Secondary, Mycobie Secondary, and Monkey Mountain Secondary. In Region 9, we're building 7 secondary schools: Tapachinga Secondary, Karasabai Secondary, Katoka Secondary, Napi Secondary, Mawaranao Secondary, Yupukari Secondary, and Tapachinga Secondary. I think I gave you the 8 there. In Region 10, we're building Wairuni Secondary, and we have finished the Hururu Secondary. That school, that's in the river. In Georgetown, we are building or rebuilding North Ramveld Secondary, Christchurch Secondary, St. Mary's Secondary, and we finished the St. George's School of Sciences. You would also know, and if we were only to look at Georgetown, because you know that area well, that we've done major extensions, including the finishing off of St. Rose's, which was demolished sometime in 2016, 2017, and never rebuilt. So we finished St. Rose's, we've extended the Bishop's High, we've extended Queen's College and given them 6 form blocks. We are going to be putting a new block at the St. Stanislaus College. We're going to, we have extended significantly East Rheinveld. We've extended significantly St. Winifred's Secondary. These are all major extensions where we were able to accommodate entire levels. For example, the whole level 7 or the entire grade 6 form class. And so infrastructure sounds, I don't like using it in dollars and cents, because for me, that's not what's important. For me, what is important is the seats we're offering to our children. And to give you an idea of what we're doing, currently in Region 9, you have 4 secondary schools. You have St. Ignatius, Anai, Aishalton, and Sand Creek. That's what you have in Region 9. In 4 years, we're building 7 secondary schools. So I hope you understand the magnitude of what we've undertaken. When the PPP came into office in 1992, we had 3 secondary schools in the hinterland regions, 1, 7, 8, and 9. One was in the northwest, one was in the St. Ignatius, one was at St. Ignatius, and one was at Bartica, if you consider Bartica hinterland. I don't, because it's right there as a gateway. Those were the 3. When we left office in 2015, we had 14 more secondary schools built in the hinterland, 1, 7, 8, and 9. And no secondary school was started or finished, not only in the hinterland, but anywhere in Guyana. We are currently building 37 secondary schools across this country. We currently have, so to take you to the impact of what we're trying to do, and the mathematicians amongst us could do that calculation, for all the time that Guyana existed, we've had 116 secondary schools when I came into office in 2020. We are now building more than 1/3 of that at one term. In Irfan Ali's first term, we're building 37, when for the whole of Guyana's existence, we've had 116. So the magnitude of it is what I hope you understand now. Let's take the building of a school right at Caneville or Prospect or Nimes. What does that mean for us? When I came in, Sadia Kadir, our now ACEO exams, but then superintendent of exams, very quiet, very efficient, wholly efficient officer, said to me, "You're going to have some problems." And I said, "Well, hit me up," because we were in the middle of COVID, so I thought it was COVID problems. And she said, "No, we're about to announce these results, and we don't have about 3,000 spaces for children in Georgetown and Region 3. So what do you mean we don't have 3,000 spaces? She says, "We simply don't have seats and spaces to put these children in. We don't have it in Region 3 in Georgetown." So we had to look for, you may remember the tents at East Rumveld. You may remember, which is still happening, community centers at Potentia, looking to rent buildings in Reed and Hoop. Right on the East Bank, as we speak, children are in primary tops. That's not a place we want to be. That's not a place we need to be in. And we're not people who wring our hands. We're people who find solutions. Of course, buildings and getting to the place of the completion of a building is a whole process that involves so many people that it's very challenging. The procurement process is long, and then working with contractors to complete things in the timeline that they say they're going to complete things in is very, very long. In addition to the secondary schools, though, we are building primary schools and nursery schools where none existed. According to the United Nations, we've already achieved universal primary education. So we are, although we have that, we are looking to make sure we either rebuild where necessary, such as the St. Gabriel's Primary, old, dilapidated, needs a new school, so we rebuild that, but also looking to build new primary schools where none existed. For example, in a village called Krakrana in Region 9, or Toka in Region 9, where the primary school didn't exist before, but children were attending primary, but very far away from where they are. And we have gotten a complete assessment of where we need nursery schools and are also feverishly working on trying to bring in universal nursery education during this time also. Another major feature for us was teacher training, which you have heard me speak about before, but which is worth repeating. That would be CPCE, teacher training, the second. So we have trained over the last 4 years, 4,378 teachers. And this is more than double of what we trained between 2015 to 2020. But that's not the only success story in this. I want to tell you about this program. When I came into office, the college was closed, as was every other learning institution because of COVID. But there was no prospect of when they would open because CPC has only ever been, since they began, in-person education. They had distance, but distance education meant they're distant in the regions that they're in. There was no technology-infused education. And I said to Miss Viola Rowe, who we've happily engaged again after her retirement to do some other good work for us, I said to her, Viola, there's going to come a time when there's no COVID, nobody's wearing masks, we're allowed to gather, such as today. And at that time, we will need teachers. If we don't train them now, we'll have none then. So we gotta find a way to train. Let's take this college online. And that was about, if I were to look back at my Facebook page, that was probably early September. And we were supposed to open in January. But going online is not an easy exercise. So I think we opened in April of 2021, if I'm not mistaken. And we saw remarkable things. The college hitherto was only ever able to admit at any, or graduate in any given year, the highest number of 535 graduates. That means 535 newly trained teachers in the system. Now you're seeing us graduating 2,000 and 4,000 teachers. That means a higher quality and qualitatively, and a higher number quantitatively. So you got more teachers and you have better trained teachers. But that's not as great as that story is. There's some other smaller stories here that will have you understand the impact of this. there is something called the TTC, Trained Teacher Certificate, which you would have to do 3 years for, and then go to UG and do 3 more years to get your degree in education. And when we started, almost all hinterland teachers were doing the TTC because that is all that was accessible to them. So hinterland teachers, which in the majority are made up of our Amerindian brothers and sisters, had to spend 6 years to get a degree. And they had to leave their families and come out to do that. So what we had was a lot of untrained teachers in the hinterland, because you have to leave your 3-month-old baby and come here and spend 6 years to get a degree. That was not what was happening on the coast. On the coast, it was 4 years. As soon as we opened up the program, the associate degree program to the hinterland, we saw an immediate almost zeroing of the numbers of teachers who are doing the TTC. If you see numbers there, it's people who are graduating from before on in these years. So what you saw, what that story tells is teachers of the hinterland were always capable of doing the degree program. They were always qualified to do the degree program, but they had no access to that degree program, which means they were forced to either take longer to graduate and enjoy the benefits of a graduate, 2, not pursue the program so that they couldn't get the benefits of being a trained teacher, and then 3, the children of the hinterland could not benefit from trained teachers. Now, if you look at the story, you'll see in the regional numbers, you'll see the number of graduates for Region 1, grand total 328. I wish we had the comparison there about what it might have been in, say, 2019. In Region 7, I can't see because the flower is blocking me. But you're seeing the numbers there that show very clearly. In Region 7, we have 177 trained teachers over the last 4 years. In Region 8, 68. In Region 9, 263. Those are numbers that are very different from your 2019 numbers, which we would be happy to share with you afterwards during the question and answer period. So we also asked the University of Guyana to take their program online. By their program, I mean their degree program. And so there's no need for teachers to ask for leave to exit. Before, all the teachers would know that only 2 or 3 of them could go to UG at any given point. So if you have a school with 60 teachers, which many of our schools have, 3 could go to UG. And everybody else has to wait until they finish UG before 3 more could go. And then another 3 more, and then another 3 more. The teachers amongst us know that story and know it very well. So now we have said everybody could go because it's online. So there are no limits. You could have an entire school going to the University of Guyana at the same time for an education degree, because it's not interfering with their teaching hours and their contact hours with children. That now means that we're not stopping anybody. We have created the environment where we're promoting people's learning. And once you get a degree, you have all kinds of other benefits that we'll get to just now that President Ali announced. So our teacher training story has been a really remarkable successful story for us here in Guyana. And I'd be happy to tell you that because we're online, we have been approached by at least 2 Caribbean countries, colleagues who have asked about how they could, their teachers, much smaller numbers than ours, could benefit from this online training that we have. And that is something we're currently exploring with them, because of course, you know, Guyana, once we have something, we share it. The next topic that I'd like to introduce is the Because We Care cash grant. As you know, this was abolished under the APNU. Over the last 4 years, from 2020 to 2024, parents have received in their pockets and in their homes $26,567,468,000. You can see it raised from $19,000 in 2021 to $45,000 in 2024. Nursery children got $5 billion, $5.3 billion. Primary, $13.2 billion. Secondary, $7.9 billion. My very young and positive staff in the PR department did not want to make this a negative report. I am not so young, so let us talk a little bit about that. This grant was abolished, so they don't have the zeros next to 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, although I wanted it there. This grant was abolished by the APNUAFC on the ground that they couldn't sustain it and that they would deliver to every student breakfast, buses, boats, boots, and bicycles. And, well, you know the story. The grant was abolished. There was no, I don't know if your children got boats and buses, because we'll come to that just now. And breakfast was given to 3 schools in Region 6. And 65 schools in all. No school in Region 2 received breakfast on the breakfast program that cash grant was abolished to give. Schools were getting the previous hot meal. Certain schools were getting hot meals. That continued, but nobody in Region 2, not a single child, benefited from a new breakfast program. Not a single child on the East Coast, East Bank, benefited from a new breakfast program. And here's the killer. Not a single child in Region 10 benefited from the new breakfast program. Don't worry with 1, 7, 8, and 9, and so they were invisible. So we have moved from almost nobody benefiting from the breakfast program to every single primary school on the coast benefiting from the breakfast program at grades 4, 5, and 6, and some at grade 3, all at grade 3. So grades 3, 4, 5, and 6 are benefiting from the Breakfast for Success program. All children all across the country are from nursery to grade 2, that's our early childhood years, are receiving some form of nutrition, whether it is fortified biscuits and fruit juices or cassava bread and peanut butter, depending on where you are, or hot meals in the villages. All of our primary school children in the hinterland communities are receiving a hot meal. And we have also added that all dorm children, whether resident or not, are receiving a meal. Now let me tell you what that means. Before that addition, the children, you have a school. Some children live in the dorm and some go home in the afternoons. The children who lived in the dorm would receive lunch. The children who go home in the afternoons would not receive lunch from us. And that was an impractical thing because in those villages where you have dorm schools, going home is far. So you couldn't go home for lunch and come back. And sometimes they had to leave early to get to school because of the distance. We are now giving all the secondary school children in dorm schools lunch. So everybody's benefiting from that lunch period. So we didn't only restore the Because We Care cash grant, we didn't only make sure it increased, but we also gave breakfast. Buses and boats, if I can pull that up, so from 2023 to 2024, from 2020 to 2024, we have bought and delivered to various communities 94 boats and 58 buses. And this does not include all the communities that have used their LCDS funds to buy either buses or boats for the education sector. Comparatively speaking, and again, this is young people not wanting to get, comparatively speaking, when and this is the breakdown for buses and boats, comparatively speaking, the buses provided by the APNU previous to because that they abolished the grant for was 34 buses and 28 boats. So you abolished the grant and said you'd give breakfast and boats and buses. They didn't give the breakfast, as we just established, and as the people of Guyana know. And they gave 34 buses and 28 boats for the whole 5-year period. We have restored the cash grant. We are giving every child breakfast, and we have bought 94 buses and 58 boats. Sorry, the opposite. 94 boats and 54 buses, 58 buses in a 4-year period. These things call for political will. Do you want to do it? Do you believe people are entitled to this service? Do you believe you should work hard to deliver this service? That's why you see us doing these things and able to do it, because we didn't come from a different country. We came from the same Guyana. We don't eat differently, so we're not using the Energizer Bunny or anything that is different from what the APNU AFC ate. We just have the political will and desire to do it, and we understand that when we make commitments, we must honor them. And that's what our entire program in education is about. I'll move on now to our goal scholarships. We have so far granted 29,758 scholarships for Guyanese people, young and old, but mostly young, to study in foreign universities at no cost to themselves because the government of Guyana is paying for it. They are on degree programs, master's programs, and PhDs. They're doing certificates and they're doing postgrads and postgraduate diplomas. And if you go back, if you look at this regional breakdown, you'll see that it's not Georgetown people alone studying. So don't feel too special there, you Georgetowners. 814 from Region 1 who otherwise could not have access to foreign university to be able to study for their degrees and masters and PhDs. 2,702 from Region 2, 4,431 from Region 3, 13,002 from Region 4, 1,842 from Region 5, 2,983 from Region 6, 918 from Region 7, 605 from Region 8, 700 from Region 9, 1,761 from Region 10. And I want to, before we move on to the next slide, remind you when we first introduced this, they only doing that for their people. How people in Region 8 can study, them ain't got internet, them ain't got devices. Well, 605 people are getting degrees, masters, or PhDs from foreign universities. We are not people who find reasons why things can't happen. We try to make sure we give opportunities, and of course, people have to avail themselves of those opportunities. But the bigger story on the goal scholarship is that, and if you look at the gender breakdown, and I did it deliberately, 21,436 of these scholarship awardees are women. Some of who are home looking after their children. while their children are young and preparing themselves for the workforce with degrees and masters when these children start going to school. And 8,322 men who didn't have to leave their jobs to come and study. They can stay working to look after their families as they upgrade and upskill themselves. But a bigger story here is in a smaller number. The bigger story is in our GROW students. GROW would be reflected at the SCQF level 6 and GED. And if you add those two numbers, it would give you 6,914. Did I do that right? 6,900. See, Leon would be proud of me. 6,914 young people. Let me tell you what that is. These are people who were unable to finish high school for whatever reason, dropped out, couldn't finish it, or wasn't successful at high school. And GROW is a program we introduced that, well, GROW is an acronym for Get Ready for Opportunities to Work. And the program was introduced so that you can get high school level qualifications. So anyone that does the GED or the SCQF or the BFP would be able to finish high school and then enter tertiary education. And I am told that 80% of those who finish this program are now doing a degree program in a foreign university. So listen to that person's story. I had to drop out of school because my father died and my mother couldn't look after all of we, so she had to pick who she was sending to school. And I never thought I would be able to get a degree or go to a university. And then if I thought I could do it, I couldn't afford it because I had to start working early to help my mother. So now the government came in and allowed you to finish this program. And not only finish this program, go to a foreign university in your own time to get a degree. Those are the stories that are real. These are the human lives we're changing. So I don't like to stand and talk too much about numbers because these are people we're talking about. Many of you know them. They're your nieces and nephews. They're your neighbors. They're people going to church with you. They're people who you know had or thought had their life mapped out for them because they couldn't finish high school. But we were wrong. We were wrong. They have a new life and new opportunities with the GOAL and the GROW program. I'll move on now to teachers' benefits. Again, something we promised. You are aware that our agreement with the Guyana Teachers Union had expired, and that despite dozens of recorded meetings, we were unable to, and in the process of having negotiations, we were met with a countrywide teacher strike, not participated by all, but by enough to have affected us all. As a result of which, we have entered into a new MOU with the Guyana Teachers Union for the next 3 years, where teachers are receiving salaries and benefits, including allowances and duty-free, and increases on allowances that they had enjoyed before, to the point where, and this was signed on the instruction of the General Council to the executives of the Guyana Teachers Union, and is in full effect. Let's go through some of those. In 2024, we spoke about the age thing. There was a 10% alien announced. Oh, in 2024, there's a 10% increase. In 2025, there will be an 8% increase. In 2026, a 9% increase, and this would be adjusted for higher if public servants receive more. The great thing with teachers is they don't have to wait till the end of the year to have it all added on. From January, this is added on to their salaries from the beginning. So they're not, unlike when we get an increase at the end of the year and then they give you a retroactive pay, teachers are enjoying this as we go along. Then you have the remote area incentive. That is, if you live in the hinterland or work in the hinterland, it used to be $9,000. It is now raised to $23,000. That's a 156% increase. Doctoral degree holders, and these are all announced by President Ali, we've increased them from $30,000 to $32,000 per month. Masters and degree holders from $10,000 to $22,000 a month. Postgraduate from $6,000 to $7,000 per month. Education certificate holders from $4,000 to $5,000 per month. And education management course holders, $5,000 monthly. Now I want to point out something on this. More than 2/3 of our teachers are currently studying on Gold or other government-sponsored programs, or are in the college. So that means very shortly they'll be, if they're not yet benefiting, they'll be benefiting from these allowances, again, by a platform the government gave them to go and get yourself qualified at no cost to yourself. We also have hardline allowances increased to $5,000. Station allowance increased to $5,000. Clothing allowance increased from $8,000 to $15,000. Duty-free concessions, a 50% increase from 100 to 150 annually. And teachers with substantive senior roles, we've also lessened the category of, or widened the category of teachers who can benefit from this. Scholarships has a 100% increase from 50 to 100 annually. Reemployment after retirement. Teachers rehired after retirement will be paid at their last salary scale before retirement, and that was always a problem with getting back teachers into the system who were very good. We are going to pay teachers for marking and supervising SBAs. I believe the ministry is currently working out with the GTU how that is going to roll out. Salary increments for non-graduates, 2 additional salary increments after 3 years of service. It will benefit over 9,000 teachers. Impact on coastal teachers, they'll receive a 10% salary increase, salary increments and salary and increased allowances. And there's also an impact on hinterland teachers. So that is one of the promises we made, that we would increase and improve on the emolument of teachers in the system, and we have done that. We also knew that teachers had complaints. I'm going to the Teachers Resources Grant. You're very good. So we are, over the last year and a half, we've disbursed $3.7 billion to schools for the usage by teachers. And let me tell you what this grant is about. Teachers complain to us, and you must have known it as parents or aunts and uncles, as well as you would have heard it in the various complaints, that they have to spend their own resources to get aids and chalk and so on for the classroom, which means they had less income. And we know that they would ask us all with a list to bring these things to the class: toilet paper, Dettol, cardboard, scissors. You got the list, right? Because I got them too. There's no longer any need to give a list to parents, and there's no longer any need for teachers to go into their pockets and expend for resources in the classroom, because we're now giving every school in the hinterland, it's $5,500 per student given to the school, not the student. and on the coastland, it's $4,500 per student given to the school, not the student, amounting to $3.7 billion in resources. What are the resources? Chalk, staple machine, crayons, Play-Doh, cardboard, paper, printer, computer, water, dispensers. In fact, while this was a really good initiative and meant to do everything good, what started happening in schools started, transformers started blowing because the schools were buying too many electrical items that couldn't be taken off by the capacity of the current electrical capacity in the building. There was, as you can see, this was evenly distributed, and there was a minimum value. So if there was a very small school, which we have in the hinterland, where it wouldn't make a difference if we were to give 5-5, there was a minimum value that we gave to the school where it would ensure, I think it was $220,000 minimum, to make sure that although they don't have the number of children, I mean, you still have to clean, you still have to put up the aids, you still have to do all of that. And so this grant was specifically to help teachers be more effective in their classroom. You don't hear a lot about it because we have also asked schools to open bank accounts. So we go to the bank and at the click of a finger, well, not my finger because I don't have that jurisdiction, but the governor's finger, we send off these grants to more than 500 of our schools without having to walk around with cash and share it out. They already have or will have in their bank accounts for January, for this term here, the money they need by next week. Those who have the bank accounts, and the rest, well, we have to take it to them. Dormitories. You are aware that in the construction build-out, we have been, and if you were paying attention to the newspapers, that we have been advertising for the construction, reconstruction, or extensive rehabilitation to dormitories in Guyana. So we have 14 dorms. Currently, 10 are under serious rehabilitation. Sometimes that means taking down the entire dorm and building it back, such as at Paramakatoy, Port Ketchum, Paramakatoy. We've spent or are spending $6.4 billion to do that. And these dorms are being rebuilt at the standard or renovated to the standard of a professional report done by Dean and Partners, which suggested what the standard should be. And we're trying very hard in most cases, well, in all cases, to meet all the major parameters of the requirements and standards set out in those dorms. So let's look at that for a minute. The Northwest student dorm renovation extension will cost us $362 million. Santa Rosa Maruca students dorm renovation, $256 million. Matthews Ridge student dorm, 447, but that's dorm, multi-purpose hall, dining room, and so on. Port Kaituma dorm, $146 million. Wakapau students dorm, $199 million. Aurora Secondary, where children from the Pomeroon as well as lake areas on the Essequibo Coast stay. We are spending $119 million to renovate that. The Springland Secondary Dorm, $310 million. 3 Miles Students Residence in Bartica, $329 million. 7th Avenue, Bartica, $423 million. Warmadown, construction of multipurpose hall and kitchen, $360 million. Jawala Students Dorm construction, $310 million. Paramakatoy extension and renovation, $620 million. Monkey Mountain Dormitory, $281 million. Kopinang Dorm, $149 million. Anai Secondary, $781 million. We have to check that. I Charlton Dormitory, $47 million. Mawarnau Dorm, $78 million. St. Ignatius, $324 million. Kokwani, $123 million. Kokwani Boys, $106 million. Linden Foundation Dormitory, $449 million. So these are all publicly tendered construction projects. The designs were based on standards developed by a report we commissioned in the ministry to determine what would be best for children who are living in dormitories. This is 10 of 14. Those remaining to be done will be done this year. So we are going out and engaging in the procurement process of all of these. There are a few things we did not promise in the manifesto. Before I move on to those few things, let me tell you a little bit about TVET, our Technical Vocational Education and Training Policy. A lot has been done in this area, but you don't know about that, and that will change shortly. A lot you will hear in easy to understand language what we are doing in this area. So we've developed a new TVET policy. We have completed a traces study which shows us where kids go, and what we found is, for the most part, the children who do TVET education in high schools and otherwise end up in a skills field earning, and some other interesting data from that, interesting in a very good way, from that traces study. We've reviewed the grade 7 to 9 TVET curriculum. We've expanded the CVQ. CVQ is the Caribbean Vocational Qualifications Program from 4 schools to 25 schools. And from 4 programs to 25 programs, and we've increased it from 9 secondary schools, implementation of those programs, to 78 secondary schools. What is this program? This is a program where it's modular in approach, where you get to do it and do it and do it in a practical way until you get it right. So it focuses a lot on what you know SBAs to be, a very hands-on approach to learning a particular skill, whether it's food preparation or welding or masonry or electrical engineering. Well, not engineering, electrical installation. We've developed a TVET management information system. We're commissioning new TVET centers. You would know that we did the Friendship one on Region 3 and Mabaroom in Region 1, and we have one in Bartica, St. Ignatius, Hopetown, and Bedford-Wachting left to be commissioned, and I'm told that I should be able to do that by the end of this month. We had some electrical installation issues that we're resolving there. We're training more than 184 TVET pedagogues, that's teachers, as assessors across the country. We've issued 781 SCCP certificates in 2024. We are strengthening partnerships with private agencies and a whole host of other things, created a digital TVET platform. There's a page 2 to this, because when you ask Ritesh Tulram for successes, he doesn't stop. And page 2 has more lists. Ritesh, as you may know, is our deputy chief for TVET. And you have Mr. Chinadu. And if I'd asked him, we would have been here till tomorrow, because he has a list too of the things that he has done. I've been talking for a long time. There are many things that we didn't promise in the manifesto that we've done. We're about to launch a literacy movement, and I'm calling it a movement. In the back there, you see Stembiso Grant, our ACO secondary, our ACO literacy, who is running that program for us. And what they have done in that department is some amazing work where they created material for teachers and students, pupils and students, from nursery to primary to secondary. And then I will tell you just now about after. And so it's an across-level literacy movement where our aim is to make sure by grade 4, every child is literate, meaning every child can read and understand what they are reading. The material is currently in print, very small unit that did that. All Guyanese. The material is currently in print and is going to be finished by the end of January for launch in for distribution in February. Mrs. Ali, whom you know better as the president's mother, is also a literacy expert who worked at NSERD. Well, she's a teacher for her entire life. She worked at NSERD for many, many years. And one of the things we asked her voluntarily to do earlier on in this administration was to prepare for us an adult literacy document, because that was one of her specialties. So we are going to be we couldn't use it by itself. Now that we have this, we're going to be incorporating that work to make sure it's not just school children who are benefiting from this, but also adults in the society who feel they need some help with reading and writing. And we're going to be rolling that out nationally across the country using Mrs. Ali's paper. Well, it wasn't just a paper, it was paper with resources that she had prepared. We've also, in support of that, but also as a pet project of mine, started up libraries for primaries, where we bought libraries for every primary school. A library is, of course, a collection of books. I'm not telling you we bought buildings, we bought books. Really nice stuff, like Harry Potter and Diary of a Wimpy Kid and Captain Underpants and Junie B and Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew, and a whole host of books, really nice books that I know, Babysitter's Club, that I know my own children read at those ages, and we've put them in primary school. So we've given, or are in the process of distributing now, to every single primary school. That's 459 primary schools all across Guyana, public primary schools, of course. 154,224 books, something never before we have done. These are storybooks that are trendy and trending. Books can change your life. We're also doing that for secondary schools. So right now we have bought for 150 secondary schools, 16,440 books. But that's not the end. These were just the classics, and that's what we had money last year to buy. We're buying more this year. When I say the classics, I'm talking about books like Anne of Green Gables and Wuthering Heights and the Austens, Jane Austen, and those books. And that was for me this for me is going to be hugely enriching for children. You could really change your life if you start reading. And if you are parents struggling with the competition of the device, you know the struggle is real. It's easy parenting. You could park them with the device and don't feed them, bathe them, or look at them. But we gotta force ourselves to do more. And so getting them into these books would be something that we really, really have to do. Mathematics, we have begun a mathematics intervention program. And that is, so what happened? The Caribbean Examinations Council this year announced, very timidly and disappointingly, that the entire region had seen a significant drop in mathematics results. In fact, it was a 7% of an already bad figure that was reduced in the mathematics results. CXC, I had a meeting, or the CXC had a meeting in September, October. And they have a plan, and their plan will start in September of 2026. And their plan is to have a modular approach. Guyana is not waiting until 2026 because we'll have entire generations finishing without the benefit of this plan. So we introduced our own math intervention, something we did in 2012 or 2013 also, and it worked. What is that? We're giving to every child calculate a scientific calculator, geometry set, all the relevant textbooks, graph book, and past papers organized by topics. We are also, and I'll tell you about those just now, we also have Leon Beaton, who you may all know by now, on our television channel and Facebook and every other forum we have, teaching mathematics lessons, where if you follow him and your child were to do the topics with him and the exercises he gives afterwards that you can find in the textbooks that you have in your book bag, you will be able to pass mathematics. And we have also hired monitors to go into the schools. Now, why did we do that? We found, and our research said, that when children have to borrow a calculator on the morning of the exam, or a geometry set, or C-graph paper for the first time, they're struggling with how to use it rather than trying to do their mathematics. And so we wanted to give every fourth form and fifth form those resources so that they are familiar and familiarize themselves with usage of the material. Then we gave the textbooks, so that this particular textbook we're using is from an author named Raymond Tosi, who incidentally is a Guyanese man but living in Trinidad. And the benefit of his book, I am told, because I myself don't like mathematics, the benefit of his book is that he has dozens and dozens of exercises on the same topic. And that is why it is loved in the Caribbean, because mathematics, once you do it and do it and do it, you're going to get it right. And the past papers, we have organized not just past papers, but past papers by topic, so that if you're doing algebra, you could go there and answer all the algebra questions, because sometimes you think you know something until you begin to answer. And you realize, I really don't know this. And then you have to go back and do it. And so this, we expect to see an increase in our results this year, or at least next year, by next year. What we know is that the last time we introduced this program, in the schools that we introduced the program, we saw a 10 to 12% increase in pass rates at the schools at which the programs were introduced. This is not a Ministry of Education. We are doing everything we can do. We're giving all the resources. We are giving the Leons. We have gotten a new math head at NSERD. We have staffed the department with experts. But this requires input from teachers and the home. You have to make sure your children are working 4 or 5 exams. They have the book in the bag. So it can't be you ain't got a book, or you ain't got a calculator, or you ain't got a graph book, or you ain't got the geometry. So you have everything. You mightn't know what they're doing, because I could tell you as a parent, I don't know. So you could do it and I can't mark it because I have no clue whether it's right or wrong or what process I must use. But you could sit down and watch them do 5 sums and take it back to Miss in the morning. So that practice, if children were to practice and do a lot of that practice, we are absolutely certain they will pass. And we are going school to school, meeting with parent bodies and asking them to understand what their role is in this. We're also saying if you can't afford lessons, we're giving you free lessons on the Learning Channel, on the radio, on the app that we've created. I mean, we have a Quiz Me website where we've uploaded all the questions, the paper 1 type questions, where you just have to go in there and answer. And right away you'll get back your answer about whether it's wrong or right. So there's very little else the ministry can do. It is now over to you, my dear students. It is now over to you, my dear parents. It's now over to you, our hardworking teachers. We are here holding your hands, and anything you need, just call us, we'll get it. Come to you. You don't know how to teach a topic, that's fine. Why did we do the monitors? Because As much as teachers work hard, we found that some teachers simply can't teach a topic. You're great with algebra, you're horrible with fractions. I hope fractions is not part of algebra. Or you're great at the number line, but you're awful at profit and loss. So the monitor can help. The monitors are experts. They can help you teach that topic, and they can retrain you right there on the spot about how to teach that topic. But monitors are also there to make sure the teachers are teaching, because we have had complaints too that teachers are teaching topics the day before and the week before the exam. And obviously, if you do that, you'll have trouble with your children. The monitors are there to make sure the SBAs are being done at a quality that are going to give our children the maximum number of marks on that component of the exam. So those are some of the things that we have done. We are infusing ICT, and I'll end on this one unless Anisha pulls up another. We have in 193 technology-aided spaces in 41 of our high schools, with key features of a smart classroom and 30 dedicated smart classrooms. The first smart classroom in this country was at North Rheinveld, opened in 2014. The archives will show you. And it remained the only smart classroom in this country until I came back into office in 2020. And after then, we've had 30 dedicated smart classrooms in the country. And we're expanding, we're doing more. We're trying to get entire schools. The St. George's School of Sciences, every class has a smart board. All students have laptops. It's their first term in being. They all have Teams and email accounts. Their teachers are mandated to send their work and homework onto those accounts. And guess what we found? St. George's School of Sciences, which you know is St. George's, we renamed it, but St. George's. All of the children passed mathematics in the first term, and 60%, all of the children passed with 60% or more in the first term. So I'm telling you, once the investment is made, our children can do well and can do much better. I will end on the school enrichment program, which is where we want every single high school child to exit high school with exposure, not necessarily a certificate from CXC, but exposure to at least one sport, one musical instrument, one foreign language, one TVET subject, a strong sense of volunteerism. And we have so far engaged 20,599 children in these extracurricular activities. The sports that are being offered are archery, cheerleading, badminton, dance, basketball, table tennis, chess, track and field, cricket, swimming, football, lawn tennis, golf, karate, volleyball, table tennis. And the musical instruments so far are choir, drum, guitar, keyboard, recorder, steel pan, saxophone, clarinet, trumpet. As you may be able to imagine, our biggest challenge is getting people to instruct in these areas, because we now started a music program at CPC, but we don't have trained teachers, so we're calling them instructors. Along with this school enrichment program, President Ali expressed his vision to have schools, once space permitted, spaces where sport facilities can be established. And so tarmacs and what we call sport facility, tarmacs where you have like basketball courts and volleyball courts and those kinds of things are being built across the country as we speak. So we have expended so far across the country. So I say we loosely, could be the regions. $68 million at nursery, 69 at primary, and $501 million at secondary, reaching a grand total of 639. But that program only started when the president announced that at the opening of the Zealot Primary School, which was late last year. We also intend to have, and like I said, those tarmacs are to accommodate the basketball courts and volleyball courts and tennis courts and so on. I was really happy when I went to Region 9 a few weeks ago and I saw being built, and I understand since then it was finished, and someone sent pictures. So I wish we had the picture to pull it up. Basketball court being built at Ishalton Secondary. At Ishalton Secondary, where I had hitherto heard that we shouldn't do basketball in the hinterland because basketball required tall people. So from the short people, I telling the tall people, we coming after you because we don't believe that anything should hinder anyone, and we believe everyone should have opportunities that everyone can participate in, and you will see people shining through on those who will be bigger stars because they don't have the Tana type height. But along with that are nursery playgrounds all across the country. Something people have been asking us for are the playgrounds you have become accustomed to, you know, the monkey bars and the slides and swings and seesaw and so on. And we're in the process of doing just that also, putting in playgrounds at all nursery schools where once space permits. And I say that and bring your attention to the East Street, what's the school? Winford Garden Nursery. You can't put a playground in there because there's simply no space. So once space permits, we are going to be putting a playground, the nursery type playground in, and the tarmacs. I'm going to end on that note.